2 round-based maps at launch in Black Ops 6. Is it too good to be true? Well, it turns out that it's not. Except it only turns out that it's not to the extent that we know what we already knew 6 months ago. I know that was a confusing sentence. Let me explain what I mean. So 6 months ago, we learned that Black Ops 6 is going to feature 2 round-based maps at launch. That's actually been info that we've known for a while. I've posted videos on it. I've been talking about it in videos. Like, that's been a thing. But the key detail here is that a lot of people have been out of the Call of Duty news cycle and the Zombies news cycle because it's been Modern Warfare 3. They've not been paying attention for valid reasons, and so they just missed that information. And now that people are tapping into the new Black Ops 6 hype cycle, and people are getting excited for this game and what it's going to have to offer, and we've already had some fairly interesting looking teasers for Zombies, even though it's very early days, we're still seemingly getting some Zombies related stuff. That's all meaning that new people are kind of tuning into some of this old info now, and there is a new swirling of conversation around this particular talking point. So yes, indeed, Black Ops 6 will have 2 round-based maps at launch, but the detail on what those maps are has evolved a bit over the last several months, just a little bit, with some of the new information that we have about what Black Ops 6 is going to be doing for Call of Duty and like what it's even going to be called, because originally it was going to be called Black Ops Gulf War. That's not happening anymore. So let's sort of bring everyone up to speed on where things stand at present. What appears to be on the docket is 2 maps coming out at launch that are going to be round-based, and in my view, and this is a little different to some of the other kind of leakers out there and stuff like that, but in my view, neither of those maps is going to be a specific remake map, okay? So there's been a lot of suggestions that one of those maps might be a TranZit remake, for example. And I even, in my video the other day, was talking about how TranZit might have inspired the map, and there might sort of be some really exciting links there. Link on screen if you want to go watch that video. The detail that I want to make very clear, though, is that I don't think it's a remake. I don't think that they are making TranZit with the TranZit layout and the town and the farm and all those sorts of things and just putting it in Black Ops 6. That, as an idea, sort of sounds cool at face value, but I think that Treyarch recognizes that if it's a remake at launch, there are going to be a lot of people that just sit there saying, oh, it's just repurposed content again. Like, you guys are just recycling again. And bear in mind, this is a 4-year Call of Duty. And so I think Treyarch want to lean as far away as possible from any kind of narrative of recycled content. And they want to lean more into the idea of things feeling new and things feeling fresh. But that's not to say they can't be inspired. And so that's why in my other video, I said this is feeling like the likely outcome is a D-Machine style scenario where at the very most, we get one building which is repurposed from TranZit and is plonked into one of these new maps, right? Maybe 2, maybe, but probably just like one building that is a central core theme. So in D-Machine, that's obviously the big narked building in the middle of the map, right? But then it's obviously got tunnels and stuff underneath as well, and all those fun additional bits and pieces. So we either get one repurposed building or standout kind of iconic set part of the map, or we get no direct recreations, but we get a lot of things that are thematically informed by TranZit and are a modernized version of things that were in TranZit, but is not an identical replica, things along those lines. So, for example, it wouldn't shock me at all if there's a part of the church, for instance, that we see in TranZit, but that's outside the map now instead of being in the playable space. Or it wouldn't surprise me if the town in TranZit is there in some capacity, but the way that we navigate the town is different now, because rather than just being a really open square with a bunch of lava, there's obviously going to be no lava, but maybe the buildings have different doors that are open or things like that, so that, yeah, they've leaned on these ideas of what made this really cool in the past, but they've actually created an entirely fresh map. Like, nobody could say they just copy-pasted their assets, right? We know that that's nonsense, but I think that that's what Treyarch are going to lean into here. So that's kind of my current thinking. TranZit inspired, but absolutely not a TranZit remake, and absolutely not copy-pasting assets without transforming them in such a big way that it doesn't feel like a copy pasta in any capacity. So that's the TranZit thing. The extra detail here that I think is worth drilling into a little bit is the fact that we actually have leaked information on what the two maps are likely to be. So one of the maps is seemingly going to be an island, which makes kind of sense, seeing as in the Cold War ending, Peck pointed to that location on a map, and clearly that's going to be something that relates to the story of this game. Obviously, that was a 5 years later moment as well, and nowadays we are years later beyond the gameplay and the story of Cold War. So it's really no surprise that we're getting an island map, but it's exciting because we now live in an era where zombies maps are much bigger, much bigger than they have been historically, because Outbreak is a thing now. They've been developing that technology. Obviously, Modern Warfare 3 Zombies is enormous. It's so large, and so those technology pieces are going to be able to plug in with what Roundbased has to offer this year. And we might see maps of a scale that we've never seen before. And an entire island to explore sounds like a perfect way to create that feeling of a map that is so unbelievably big, right? Like impossibly big, while also still being somewhat confined to not like the size of America, right? Like just an island, the size of an island, that's going to feel thematically like it really makes sense and it works, like in the narrative in the player's head. So it's an island. This would also link in nicely with a lot of the conversation that we've seen recently around Terminus Island and what Terminus have been doing in the Modern Warfare 3 Zombies radios, for instance. Many of those radios have been talking about Terminus's different activities. They've been talking about Fletcher. They've been talking about what they've done prior to the story in Modern Warfare 3 Zombies, and that's the story of Gulf War / Black Ops 6. So again, it would make perfect sense for that to sort of all align. Now, the other map seemingly is going to be some kind of map that is in a city or a town or something along those lines. It's been a little bit more kind of vague as to exactly what that means in reality. I've seen different people posting on Twitter saying that they found strings that have said one thing and strings that have said another, but the idea of it basically being maybe a sort of suburban place, or maybe just somewhere that has some kind of town to it, or some kind of series of buildings, that seems to be the direction that we're going in. So the reason I'm sort of mentioning this, even though it seems so vague, is like it's not going to be in the jungle, for instance. It's not going to be on the moon in a crater. Like it's going to be something suburban and familiar. So the question is for you, which of those two maps, just at face value, does it sound like you're more excited for? And what is it that you're hoping to see from the continued Zombies reveals as they go on towards Black Ops 6 launch? Because as things stand right now, we've got a bit, but we don't have any really truly singular juicy thing to continue to sink our teeth into. We've just had the stuff that I've done intense breakdowns on already. So is there something that would really hook you in beyond the idea of just 2 round-based maps and Gobblegums returning to really make this the greatest Zombies of all time? If so, what would that be? Drop a comment, let me know, and subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye for now.